And we're live.
Okay, this is a big, exciting night. I'm so happy to have you here, Camille.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this and having me.
We're thrilled. This is a really exciting night for initiative 135. And hi, Joshua. Good to see everyone here. You know, one of the things that I think, especially folks that are joining, and some folks may be already watching, some folks will be joining in, but one of the things that folks always ask me that I've been curious about myself is, tell us a bit about the origin story of this initiative.
Yeah, this is definitely something that we love to talk about because it was super organic, and the way that it all came together was very community oriented. We formed as a coalition back in April of 2021 when the Compassion Seattle Charter Amendment was proposed. It was known as Charter Amendment 29. That was, and our coalition formed in opposition. The Charter Amendment worked against, a lot of our values as a coalition, as folks who work directly with those most impacted by the housing crisis. It was a mandate to keep parks and sidewalks clear without providing necessarily any new housing or permanent housing for people to go to. So it was mandating sweeps without creating actual housing options. And so we formed in opposition to that. But once it got kicked off the ballot in August of last year, I guess 2 years ago now, our coalition knew that we had kind of created something very powerful, and we were, this really, we just loved the group that we had put together that was very oriented in a lot of different parts of the Seattle community. And we were also people who have been sort of fighting for scraps and fighting for in opposition to things, and hadn't had the chance to ever really fight for something and fight for a vision. We were just kind of pushing against bad policy, and we wanted to, envision our own vision of what Seattle could be in the future. And so we did a retreat as a coalition and decided that we wanted to propose something new and propose something more visionary in terms of housing. And so that was August 2021. We spent 6 months doing intensive research and, putting together all of these different models of social housing that existed around the world and seeing what has worked well in different places. And so, yeah, it was very much just an organic community of people who saw an opportunity to do something more positive and visionary for the citizens of Seattle. And that's why we chose to run a ballot initiative and do a yes campaign for the first time instead of a no.
It's fabulous. A yes campaign. That's really exciting. Tell us a bit about, what did it take to get here, the moment that we're in right now?
Yeah. I don't even know where to begin with that, but it took, like I said, we spent about 6 months doing a ton of research, and then a drafting period where we were drafting the initiative, going through various feedback processes. We did feedback with subject matter experts in a variety of fields, including housing finance and economics, and people who study international social housing models, people who work in passive house. But then more importantly, or at least I think more importantly, we did a community feedback process where we were talking to people who are directly impacted. We talked to Real Change vendors. I work at Real Change, and our campaign is being run through Real Change. We talked to folks who are experiencing rent burden and housing cost burden. We talked to the Housing Justice Project, who works directly with people who have been evicted. And so we did this whole feedback process where we were getting ideas from people who are most impacted by the crisis. And so that process took quite a long time, but then by the time that we launched in March, we had an initiative that was super well thought out, super carefully thought out, with, a lot of both lived experience expertise and quote unquote like academic expertise all in one, and we moved forward, and yeah, we have an initiative that we're super proud of, and yeah, just thrilled to be getting to vote on right now.
That is so great. And tell us a bit about why it's on the February ballot.
Yeah, so I think that really goes back into the community feedback process. We had our initial first draft ready in January, but we didn't want to just put something out into the world without seeing what impacted communities thought about it and what they wanted to add into it. And so by the time that we had gone through these community feedback processes, which, it took quite a long time, we did dozens of hours of group meetings with folks to get their feedback. By the time we finished that, it was mid-March. And so we didn't end up actually filing our initiative until the very end of March. And so at that point, in order to get on the November ballot, we would have needed to get everything in by early August, and it just wasn't enough time for our very grassroots volunteer-based campaign to get all of the signatures in by that early date. We ended up getting the deadline for the November ballot was August 3rd, I believe, and we finished collecting all of our signatures on August 21st. So we just barely missed the deadline, but we did. And so then the next election was the February special ballot. And that's why we find ourselves as a sole issue on this Valentine's Day ballot.
That's so great. And I know you said that community feedback was super important. Was there a moment, like an importance that really struck you personally, really just highlighted something that really made you feel I-135 is the best solution for Seattle?
Yeah, I think that the two community meetings that we had that I think made some of the biggest differences, and they're like very small lines in the initiative, but they're so important to us. One of them being we had a meeting with 350 Seattle, who suggested that the Green Development Board member be appointed by the Green New Deal Oversight Board, which is a board, a city committee that is very much a group of people who come from impacted communities. And so having that board member be appointed by a city entity that has so many people who are impacted by the climate crisis was a really great ad for us. And then I think the other one is the line in the initiative that states that all residents, if there's like an interpersonal conflict between residents in a building, that all residents have the right to restorative justice conflict resolution, as opposed to just punitive evictions. That idea was given to us by the super rad people at the Housing Justice Project, who have seen evictions for such petty reasons happen to people. And so this was our way of ensuring that there is sort of a safeguard against just evicting people for these small petty reasons.
Right. That's a really thoughtful. One question I think as we begin and we're all here and it's really exciting. What are two oppositional points that you have heard that you would like to address for everyone here today?
Yeah, I think that one oppositional point that has been very much going around is that this is a duplicative, unfunded mandate that, is duplicating stuff that we're already doing. And so we've from the very start acknowledged that there are lots of nonprofits doing really important work to house our most low-income neighbors. We have the Seattle Housing Authority, which is doing everything it can given its super limited funding that the federal government will give it. But this is fundamentally not duplicative. The only place in the entire United States that does something like this, that does entirely publicly owned in perpetuity housing for mixed income communities, is in Montgomery County, Maryland. There's nothing in the city of Seattle currently doing that. And so it is different, and some people don't recognize the difference, but having housing that is entirely publicly owned, available to the entire public in the way that public education is available to anyone that wants it, not just those who are extremely low income. We want to have housing that is a public good. And as of right now in Seattle, we don't have that. And so we do not see this, and it is not duplicative. And it also, the reason that it is an unfunded mandate, it's not a mandate, first of all, it's the reason it's unfunded is because there are 2 Washington state laws that would have directly been broken if we had attached a funding source to the initiative. We initially set out to attach a progressive revenue source to it, but it would have broken 2 Washington state laws. One being that there can't be more than one thing on a single ballot measure. And then the other law being that PDAs, public development authorities in Washington state, do not have taxing authority. So we couldn't put funding on it. So much like the Pike Place Market PDA, the entity is being set up, and then we will go after funding. And we do plan to go after funding. It is, the authority, as of the day that it is established, it would have bonding authority, so it can immediately start requesting these low interest municipal bonds, but it can also start requesting funding from philanthropic sources. It can start requesting funding from the state and city government. We are working with Representative Chop to get money at the state level. And we're also looking towards a second ballot initiative from our coalition, which would be a new progressive revenue source for social housing specifically. I think the only other oppositional point that is really important to push back against is the idea that this entity will go in and buy up existing low-income housing and turn it into market rate housing, which is frankly a very bizarre claim. Just like if you look at the people in our coalition, we are almost all of us are rent burdened people, impacted people. And so we would never want to go in and buy low income housing to turn it into market rate housing. But that assumption is that claim is also based on the assumption that this entity would have eminent domain, meaning that it could just claim, buy things up without requesting it. This entity does not have eminent domain. It can only buy things that are put on the market for sale. So those are the 2 oppositional points that I would push back against the most.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. And I also wanted to introduce Joshua Johnson, who's here for a quick minute. I know that he wanted to introduce someone else we had here who would like to give a few words for all of our people watching. So Joshua.
Yes, thank you so much. I want to say congratulations to you, Carrie, Chair Barnes, as well as our new state party chair, Shasti Conrad. Thank you so much for leading with purpose and quick resolve. We really appreciate your support on this important issue. Housing justice is so important for our membership. I'm a community organizer at UFCW. We're our state's largest local labor union, representing grocery, retail, healthcare, cannabis, laundry and textiles, meat packing, etc. And one of our rank and file member leaders really led the way in helping our union get on board with this amazing campaign, as Camille's explaining, as well as getting an endorsement from MLK Labor, who I hope will be joining us soon. But I really want to let our workers lead on this campaign, because it's about us having housing where we live. I know that Camille mentioned some great projects in Europe. They actually had, I think, some kind of retail space below the housing units, which is so innovative and so needed for our communities. So please, Sean, go and take it away.
Hi, my apologies, technical difficulties. Hi, so yeah, Sean Hayanga, and back when I was UFCW 3000 member, our community organizing director, Kristen Bifus, invited me to sit in on the endorsement. House Our Neighbors was looking for endorsement from MLK Labor for Initiative 135. So I was honored, pleased and honored to have that opportunity and learn about Initiative 135 along with the rest of the MLK labor. And Tiffany gave she stated her case or their case for House Our Neighbors and Initiative 135. There was some debriefing after we heard her amongst the members, and voted to endorse. I'm so happy we did. And I've learned more about the initiative since then, and had the opportunity to signature gather and canvas, and met some great people along the way. So it's been a lot of fun. I like the idea of folks having housing, folks that live in Seattle but can't afford to live in Seattle because of constantly increasing rents. I had a coworker ask me a couple weeks ago. She was, says her rent keeps going up $100 a pop. So, and that's, no one's a stranger to that. So I'm sure. So I think this is a very, very good thing. I know a lot of people worked really hard to get this on the ballot for tomorrow, and I have nothing but I'm confident in this. So very good thing for the city. Definitely needed to fill in the gaps that already existing housing leaves. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This is so amazing. And I want to make sure that everyone who's here who wants to say a few words before we really get going and texting and calling our friends and saying, I've got a whole list of people I'm going to text and call, but I see Shasti Conrad, and I'd love to have her say a few words.
Hi, everyone. It is so great to be with you. Hello, Chair Barnes. I think this is our first official thing together.
It is. Hello, Washington State Chair.
As I'm sure many of you know, I was a chair of King County for the last 4 years, and I'm so happy to have Carrie leading the org now, and really proud to now be over with the state party Dems. So yeah, I'm just here to basically just say, like, vote, vote, vote. Make sure that you are getting all of your friends and family, and if you have to go to the grocery store, ask the clerk if they voted. Do all the things that you can to make sure that we're getting both ballots in. I missed the very beginning, so I'm not sure if Melissa Taylor or if Carrie shared this, but before King County Democrats got involved in the King Conservation District election, 6 people voted. And now 6 years later, that is a race that is actually it's competitive. There are 3 great candidates running for that seat, and we've had hundreds and hundreds of folks actually vote, and vote in an off-cycle election is really challenging. So we want to make sure to demonstrate that we are engaged and that we know how important that seat is. And then you've just heard these incredible speakers talk about I-135, and this is a real opportunity to do the big, bold things that we often talk about and often find reasons to push off, right? This is a chance to make a difference in some of our most marginalized folks' lives, but really just like to change the city, like change the way the city works, get something done that's actually going to really help people. That's so it's so rare that we get to actually do those types of things, that we get to make a difference in people's lives. We get to make a difference for our city. We get to make a difference for our community. And so you want to participate in this, and you want to tell everyone to participate in this, because this is a chance to make change. And we know what that feels like, because look at what we just did in 2022. So often we talk about all the ways that we can't get things done. The system's too broken. It's too hard. And I just want to say, look at what we've done. Look at what we can do. But it takes engagement. It takes people reminding our friends and families to vote. The best way to get people to vote is through relational organizing, which is what I know all these folks have been doing, but what we're about to do right now, as soon as I stop talking, now, we are going to text all of our friends, and we are going to say, have you voted? No, really, have you voted? Your ballot came. have you voted? So let's do that. I'm going to be quiet so we can hurry up and get to that. But I just want to say again, I want to say a big thank you to the organizers. You took on something big. Doing it on the February ballot is probably, you chose the hardest path possible. And we want to say thank you for all of the hard work that you've done to bring us. And what an amazing Valentine's Day gift to give everyone that we love and care about, all of our community members that we love and care about, this opportunity for better housing opportunities. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Chair Barnes, and then get your phones out and let's start to text and do all the good work to make sure that, you know, we're doing our part.
Before we get
Thank
quite
you.
started, I just want to do quick introductions of the folks who are here with us so far. We're expecting other folks to drop in throughout the night, but Fernando, just really quickly, who are you and why are you supporting I-135? And did you vote twice, both for I-135 and in the King Conservation District election?
Well, I actually made sure that several people today voted, and I'm actually not currently in district for I-135, or else I would have voted twice. But I was very excited to be at Green Lake yesterday, handing out a bunch of pamphlets for I-135, giving some people door knockers. That was really fun, actually, because you get to take a bunch of photos with dogs and get them to endorse I-135 as well. Yeah, I'm just a member of Seattle DSA, which has also endorsed this initiative, been doing a lot of door knocking, a lot of signature gathering in the past for it. We're just thrilled to have this on the ballot. We think that housing should be decommodified completely so that people can live, happy and healthy lives. And we think this is an amazing step forward. Thrilled to be able to work with House Our Neighbors on this and push it forward for all the hard work that they've done. And I know that I'm not the most active member of the Housing Justice Working Group, but our organization there has been door knocking. I think one of our members was actually the person knocking a door in one of the Seattle Times, or I think it was the Stranger's recent preview photo. So we're really excited to be out there, and probably will end up calling in a bunch of friends and maybe even going door knocking again today and tomorrow. So we're really thrilled to do that.
Excellent. Suresh.
Hey everyone, I'm here for 3 reasons. I'm a PCO from the 37th Legislative District. I'm a member of Tech for Housing, and also I'm on the steering committee for I-135. I have huge thanks to everyone who's gathered here today. I just biked in the rain to a school event for one of my kids, hail. Right now, there are dozens of volunteers with the House Our Neighbors Coalition out in the hail. They are tabling. They are operating ballot printing stations. They are knocking on doors. And, a lot of folks, if you're earning minimum wage or you're working 80 hours a week, you don't have time to catch up with the news, and you may not know that there's an election right now. What we're doing right now to reach out to voters is incredibly important. The majority of people who vote in February elections have rent control. They own a home like me, and they have a little bit more time to be aware of the event that's going on right now. It's so important. Also, speaking of rain, thank you, Andrew Eshiofu, for standing out in the rain and helping us canvass through and table and reach out to voters so many times and get them signatures as well. That's what.
Okay, Andrew.
Hi, I'm excited that one more day. I voted, did a video. I hosted I gathered some friends ballot to fill out the ballots, and I'm going to do more today, call more friends, but we had a ballot filling session on Friday before we went out to socialize. I'm so excited about this. Anyone that knows my story knows how much housing is important to me. And my vision is to see more social housing. And for me, I think social housing also promotes social economic growth in anywhere that it's done. I voted also for the conservation district. I'm so excited to see the growth over the years on the participation and also having people run for that seat, which we started with hardly people running now to competitive races. I'm just so excited to celebrate tomorrow. It's the love of housing. That's the theme for tomorrow and all. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and Scott Forbes, if you can get on camera, you'll go after Carmen. Carmen.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Excellent.
Yeah. My name's Carmen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the King County rep for the Washington Democrats and also an elected council person, not in Seattle. I do not live in Seattle, so unfortunately, I'm not voting on 135. However, I think it is an incredible opportunity to vote on social housing to see how it could operate and work in our big sister city, Seattle. And so I'm excited to be a part of this. I was chatting with Melissa last night on how we can engage our younger voters, our new voters, 18 up, our Gen Zers. How do we get y'all to vote and get it done effectively where, you feel empowered enough to do so? And so if you have any thoughts on that, welcome to it. But here just trying to help get out the vote because we need everyone to vote, especially renters, especially our Gen Zers, those that came out to vote in November, we're going to need to have them do it again. And so I've been getting hold of all my friends and everyone I can, and everyone who still lives in Seattle, who can still afford to live in Seattle, to hopefully get out and vote by tomorrow night. Is there anything else you want me to cover?
I think that's a great start. Thanks, Carmen.
Beautiful.
So I don't see Scott Forbes on camera yet. So I think he's on part-time kid duty tonight. For me, I knocked a lot of doors last year, couple thousand, and so many people, every age, being impacted by our housing crisis. A woman who had lived in her house for 60 years, but was hoping to grow old near her kids, where her kids could help, and her kids were priced out of the city. It impacts everybody. I talked to people whose rent was going up $600 a month, $1,000 a month, and their pay was not going up that much. It is absolutely crisis levels. I grew up in this city. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and not all of my brothers and sisters can afford to live in this city. And if we want to keep communities together, if we want to have strong communities in Seattle, the only way we do that is through cross-class housing that is permanently affordable and publicly owned, so that we're taking the profit motive out of housing. It really is hard to hear that projects don't pencil out unless they have a 15% profit return. It should be a human right. And when it's a human right, we have to take the profit out of it. Same thing with healthcare, same thing with education that Camille was mentioning earlier. For me, I want people to have a place to live. And every time I see a person who doesn't have a place to live, I view that as a policy failure of the taxpayers of Seattle. So I'm really excited to vote for this. I've been texting all my people. Camille, I was going to, you talked about this a little bit, but my dad, he wants to know, how is it going to get paid for? Is it going to be a property tax? So let's do that. And then we'll just all start texting and talking about the responses we're getting.
Yeah. So no, it is not a property tax. Which is, I know, great news for a lot of people. I know that I live with my parents, actually. I can't afford to live here on my own. But my parents, I know, feel the burden of the property taxes as retired older people. But yeah, so the idea is that, like I mentioned earlier, there is no funding mechanism attached to the initiative because of the legal restrictions that were placed on us. However, we are simultaneously working on funding. We just couldn't do it in the initiative process itself. We are working with Representative Frank Chop, who has been a champion of this since early on, who's helping us get money in the state budget. We have a lot of other state representatives and senators as well who have endorsed and will be helping with that as well. We've got some supporters in the city council that we hope to partner with in the fall to get funding that way. And then we definitely also plan on running another initiative in the next year or so that will create a new progressive revenue source that could be directed towards social housing. We want to do this in the most progressive way possible. We have a super problematic tax code in Washington and Seattle, across King County. And so we are looking everywhere to find new sources that could create funding for this that won't burden the working class residents of the city. And so that is how the capital will be found. And then we have the kind of more technical, the bonding authority that PDAs are granted. And the bonding authority allows for the entity to bond against future rents, meaning that they can get these very low interest municipal loans to construct and build housing, since it is a public entity, and then pay off those loans over the course of a longer period of time by utilizing the mixed income rents that the residents will be paying. So that is how it would be paid for. So yeah, thanks for that question from your dad.
Excellent. All right. So everybody's got their phones, because we don't have paper Rolodexes anymore. We're going to spin the Rolodex and pick a person in Seattle that you can text who may not have voted. And just, I know that I have been reminding people, probably there's some people who are a little, you know, got it, Melissa, I got it, I'm on this. But every time I do this, I'm like, oh, I forgot that person. I was joking. I was at a healthcare appointment this morning, and I've done a good job with this healthcare provider, because they actually had put out Valentine's candy and put a voter pamphlet right next to the Valentine's candy in my healthcare office to remind folks to vote. So I really do remind everybody. So get out your phones, start texting folks, and it looks like we have a new person. Hey, Amy.
Hi, everybody. Hi, do you want me to speak a little bit about 135?
Sure.
Okay.
That way other people can get some of their texts out and get some of the responses back.
Awesome. Yes, please be texting your friends and all your neighbors. I'm Amy Madden. I am the 43rd District Representative to the state party under Chair Shasti Conrad's amazing leadership. And I'm also the CD7 representative to the executive committee. So Pramila Jayapal's congressional district. I just wanted to speak a little bit about 135 because I am a survivor of childhood homelessness in Seattle. And people who have survived these things in our community know firsthand, and all of our allies know firsthand, that people end up without housing because housing is not affordable, that is one of the primary reasons. And that we don't provide the services that communities need to support themselves often. But housing is one of those human rights that, if they are met, communities can work to meet other needs. And I also wanted to say that as a member of the queer community in Seattle, as a member of the disabilities community, it's something we are always talking about how no one can afford to live in Seattle anymore. Or if we are staying on in Seattle, we're kind of holding on by a thread, because there's our rent continues to be raised year after year. And so many people I know are paying 50% or more of their income on housing, on rent, and you have a lot of families and communities that talk about how they'll never be able to own a home in the city that they love, in the community that they love. And Initiative 135 is a new precedent setting initiative that's going to help us change that. So, if you can contact even just 5 of your friends tonight to get them to turn in their ballot, voter turnout is everything with these elections. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amy. This is really excited, and I'm so excited to support Initiative I-135. And I just got a text from my friend Tara, who was like, oh, that's right, my ballot. So it's really exciting.
I was going through mine. I was like, oh yeah, that person I worked with 6 years ago. I swear the only time she hears from me is about voting. I need to keep in touch with people. Senator Joe Wynn has just joined us. Hello, Senator Nguyen.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. We're texting our friends, reminding them to vote.
Nice. I just got out of a committee hearing. I voted.
Did you
So
vote
mine is
twice?
in. And we'll get some more folks as well.
Did you vote twice? Did you vote for in the Seattle election and for the conservation district?
Almost. The answer is
Almost.
about
That's good because you still have 25 hours?
yeah.
25 and 23 minutes?
Conservation district voting is always kind of wonky.
It is kind of wonky. We were talking earlier about how it used to be you had to request a ballot, have them send it to you, fill it out, send it back to them, and somehow they were surprised when only 6 people voted.
Yeah.
Then we encouraged people to vote, and several thousand people voted, and it might have broken their system.
I know. Although it's the first in the nation, I think, app-based voting. Like, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. All right. So I-135, social housing. Are you voting right now, Joe?
Yes.
You look like you're voting right now.
I already voted for I-30. I already voted for the initiative. Now I'm just gonna go for the King Conservation District.
Brilliant. Yeah, we were actually talking with Scott Forbes earlier about wanting to do a little demo, but I think there's too much personal information in there to actually demo going through the balloting process. Yeah, I'm just yeah, flipping through, reminding folks to vote, folks who may not have heard from me in a little bit.
But how is it going? Obviously, campaigns just going year round. It's tough when it's kind of that off cycle, but it's also an opportunity. If you can mobilize, it really does make a difference.
It does. Today's hail doesn't help. Like huge props. We were talking, we've got volunteers out now, and huge props to those volunteers because whoop, yeah, today's not a day I would want to be out knocking doors.
Joe, what compelled you to support I-135?
You're talking to me?
Yep.
Yeah, so when my family first came to the United States, we had access to public housing in White Center, and that's the reason why we came here. So that is no longer there. It's mixed income housing, which is still great because it's more affordable than it was before. But even that experience really was kind of the foundational for us to not just be able to come to the United States, but also come specifically to White Center. If we had that opportunity and we were to control that stock as our own jurisdiction, I think it would be better off for us to be nimble and be able to manage that better as well. Plus, there's other jurisdictions that have it in Europe, right? Like we could see that model being very successful as well. And absent us having wholesale tax reform to be able to actually, invest appropriately, I think kind of forcing that conversation was important in this one too. We've been in a housing crisis literally half my life, I guess, in Washington State, right? So doing the same things over and over again hasn't quite worked. So if we're able to kind of push the boundaries a little bit and have an innovative strategy for us to actually accomplish some of the goals that we talk about, I think that's widely important. Plus, we've seen it work in other places. So it's innovative here, but it's not that innovative around the world, right? And it's also not even that innovative compared to what we've done in the past. However, what we've done in the past has not been equitable in terms of public housing, but I think you can do it better. And then I do have to run in about 5 minutes for another caucus meeting to talk about ferries. We go from, I get here at like 5:30 in the morning, and I usually leave around 10 or so. So just kind of bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
We appreciate you jumping in here. Thank you.
Session is definitely long days.
Yeah.
I'm also probably going to have to hop out with Joe because I have a council meeting at 7:00. So I'm going to have to.
Oh, good. Thank you for popping in.
Of course. I just want to also share.
You're on TikTok, right?
Oh God, yeah. Even though I'm a little annoyed with that app right now, the algorithm's been really messing up with everybody. It makes me feel good when maybe we have people with 1 million followers only gain a few thousand views. So, I mean, that happens with any kind of algorithm. It's just like real life on the interweb. But what I just wanted to share before I leave is even somebody outside of Seattle, I'm invested in this because, and I like to share like the neighbor metaphor, right? If you have a neighbor who is dealing with a bunch of crap and, you know, there's a bunch of shit happening, right? And they're burning garbage, or they have a rat infestation, or there's a bunch of people camped out in their backyard, that's going to affect you, right? All the cities outside of Seattle are just as responsible and just as impacted by this housing crisis and this what we're dealing with. And so I'm invested just to see Seattle hopefully get this passed and see them do it properly and do it correctly, so we can hopefully see a positive example and see other cities neighboring Seattle follow suit, so we can see this become more than just a Seattle initiative, maybe hopefully eventually becoming a Washington state initiative would be the long goal, right? So thank you for including me in this. If there's anything I can do, yes, I'm on TikTok, Rivera for Renton. I'm always trying to figure out the algorithm and also utilizing it to connect with our younger Gen Z voters. I mean, and our millennials. Like, we are now on the interweb. Short form content is the future. And so always happy to accept any feedback, criticism, or help in any way that I can. So
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. Thanks, Senator Nguyen.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Still working my way through the A's. Super helpful when you have a whole bunch of errands and you're like, that errand needs to be reminded and that errand needs to be reminded. Just copy, paste, Don't even have to change the name.
Yeah.
So I have a question I got from someone when I talked about this and why they were leaning more on the no votes is they live in a condo here on Capitol Hill and they are worried that this would, their condo is their retirement plan, which is already a red flag. Your retirement plan should not be your condo, but they are worried that it will reduce the price of their condo and they will not be able to retire and make money from their condo.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at that is property values in Seattle are going to continue to have upward pressure. I mean, let's look at Manhattan, right? Like, it can be worse in terms of the cost, but also like for people who own, who want to, you know, have that as a retirement plan, like that is one, a place for you to live, which is great, and an asset. However, your property values are also impacted by the quality of life of everybody in the city. If nobody wants to live in our city, or our city like hollows out the middle, that's not good for their property values either. Having a city where we have lots of mixed income, integrated, thriving communities is good for property values. It's also good for quality of life. Having your property value go sky high, but your quality of life not be great is not a good and long-term investment. So I would ask them to widen the lens a little bit. I think we get stuck in this scarcity mindset. And I think that our current culture tries to scare us and tries to keep us in a scarcity mindset where we feel like we don't have enough and we have to hold on super tight to what we have and not be as worried about the person next to us when it, like, every single one of us, even no matter how much money you have, you're still interconnected to everybody else. You still need a farmer to help you get food on the table. You still need a trucker to help get that food to the city. I mean, we're so connected, and denying that makes us all worse off. I don't know, anybody else want to add anything to that?
I think that was a really beautiful way to put it. I think that like the one, like on a not as beautiful note, but a point that my dad frequently brings up when talking about property values is that the same people who are worried about their property values going down are the same ones who are also really angry about their property taxes going up as their property values go up. So it's kind of the choice of like, do you want more property taxes or yeah, I think that but I also agree that like having a thriving city for all is definitely going to improve quality of life and property values in return. And yeah, I mean, I could talk about it forever, but I had the immense privilege of going to Vienna in September to look at the social housing there. And it's just, the quality of life there is beyond, and just something that is so cool to see. And everyone we met who lives in, we met people who live in social housing and nonprofit housing and private market housing. And everyone agrees that just the quality of life is just like, that is the win for that model.
And Camille, you may have mentioned this earlier. Do you know off the top of your head how much of Vienna is social housing? Like how much of their housing stock?
Yeah, it's about 51% of people live in some form of non-market housing, and it's like 48% of that is the municipal social housing, and then the other 3% is nonprofit. Yeah,
what a different way to live.
Yeah, and the fact that the private market has to then because basically the entire population is eligible for social housing because there's not like a cap on income. The private market has to compete with the social housing providers. And so the private market rents are significantly lower as a result, because they're forced to compete with the social housing, municipal housing provider to get tenants.
And I like what Amy said. Housing is a human right. It is part of our social structure and our social agreement with each other.
Yeah, I'm married to an Australian.
And my internet is.
Yeah, your internet's just a little glitchy, Carrie. I was saying I'm married to an Australian, and so he will frequently tell people that he used to be grumpy about the taxes that he paid in Australia until he realized how much that they get for those. Like, not only do they have access to healthcare, access to university, they also, again, are in a community where there's paths to take care of people. And so then it isn't waiting till the last minute, waiting until there's a crisis to help people. And that really impacts quality of life. And that just, it just baffles me a little bit that that's not something that we have decided to embrace, like many parts of the world, and many parts of the world that we all like to vacation to. Go to Australia, go to Vienna. They've really invested in their social infrastructure and taking care of each other. And gosh, I hope we can too. So part of why I'm sitting here texting tonight. Scott Forbes, are you there yet? Are you able to do any camera magic? Nope, can do it still. Keeping Scott.
Melissa, on that, I want to add something that people don't understand about housing. And Carrie said housing being a basic human right. I remember back in Nigeria when I was in elementary school, that was one of the first things they told us: food, clothing, and shelter. So, but one of the thing is, I really get really sad when certain aspects of Africa, countries in Africa, are projected to be in this like dire needs, whereby in Nigeria, for example, social housing is big. We have federal social housing, we have state federal social housing, and we have county local government social housing. I never really witnessed a high level on house and homeless community till I came back to the USA. And as you said, we take care of our people. It might not be that, it might not be the Western version of housing, but we try and ensure people have a roof over their head. And it's something that even it's so beautiful when they build this, especially for low income or people from like orphans and widows. They build housing for them. The government gives them those houses. And it was something I really did not get why we don't have things like that. And that's why I'm excited about this, because everyone deserves a roof over their head, no matter your economic or financial level. It's a basic human right. It's not a luxury.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about this model and having it be capped at 30% of your income is that means that when your income goes up, you pay more into the system because you're benefiting more. But when your income goes down or goes away, you don't lose your housing because of that instability. And when we think about trying to stabilize people, trying to stabilize communities, that kind of stability makes such a difference. When you lose your job, you don't lose your home. Somebody who has expletive, that's tomorrow. Yes, that's tomorrow. Voting is tomorrow. Today is February 13th. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Tomorrow is Elections Day. Voting is tomorrow by 8 p.m. We have drop boxes throughout Seattle. Our King County Elections Office has made sure that we have plentiful access to drop boxes. So 8 p.m. tomorrow. Get your ballots in. Today's good too.
I just texted my kid's babysitter from when they were toddlers, and she's like, "I made my boyfriend vote too." I'm so happy.
That reminds me. I'm always reminding my kids' tutor too.
Yeah. So great.
I had so I grew up in Seattle, meaning that I have a lot of people, a lot of 206 numbers in my phone from middle school and high school. And yeah, a lot of people who I know still live in Seattle who I have not talked to in at least a decade. But I had made the commitment that I would text every 206 number in my phone to remember to vote. And it was a bit uncomfortable. I definitely reached out to people who I had not talked to in a very long time. And, a lot of people ignored, but a lot of people were like, "Oh shit, Camille, like, whoa, this is cool. I didn't know that there was a ballot. Thanks for letting me know. I'll check my pile of mail." So, yeah, definitely interesting.
Yeah. I've been doing this for long enough that people are I've done that a few times where I've just like dug super deep. And for me, I graduated like many years ago from high school here. And so in some cases, it really had been maybe 20, maybe more years since I had talked to people. But I mean, a lot of people like having that blast from the past. When Facebook first came out and you refound people, it was so exciting to be like, "Oh my goodness, I haven't talked to this person in a decade or more, not since we all went off to college." So again, you're going to get ignored by a lot of them. There's some of them I intentionally did not text. We put them ZZZ delete at the end of my contacts. But yeah. It is nice to reconnect with people. And I view that as sort of like a nice complement to this ballot initiative, right? It is community building. This ballot initiative is about building our communities, strengthening our communities, connecting us to each other, putting in residential, I forget what you call them, Camille, but the committees that are overseeing the housing building.
The resident governance councils. Yeah.
Okay. I knew it had a fancy name and I just couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, that was actually something that like I said, a lot of this came from other people who have been doing this work. We met with some of the organizers behind the California Assembly Bill 2053, which was down there a year ago or so. And that was something that they had written into their initiative. And we were like, we're going to take that. That's a great idea. So yeah.
All right. It looks like Carrie's internet may have failed. She says, "Thank you so much for texting and calling to vote twice." She's continuing texting and calling, even though the internet's not supporting her being here on camera. So I will vamp and chatter in her place. Shasti, feel free to help me vamp and chatter.
Well, I think we only have 3 more minutes left in.
I'm fine when you're having fun.
Do we have any ideas of how many folks were watching on the live stream?
Let me see if it gives me those analytics. 25.
All right. And I think folks, like, if you can help us with social media as well, like make your videos, post up reminding people to vote. That's always helpful. Keep calling, keep texting, keep mentioning it in every conversation that you're having in the next 24 hours. And I think we just do everything we can to try to, get as many people to vote, because when we vote, we win. So here's our best shot, and we're gonna give it our all.
Well, that's why I love this whole "I'm voting, are you" hashtag idea. Just really, again, it's community building. I did my piece. I need you to do your piece. When we all do our pieces, we can actually make a change in our city. And yeah, this YouTube link will also, so it's live now. I think YouTube puts it through some post-processing, but this video, if there's any part of it that you really loved or that you want to share with somebody, if you get somebody texting you, "We voted," then and they have questions, you can point them to some of Camille's answers. Sorry, but you can tell I was doing my work. Yeah, so Camille, any last thoughts?
I think that you all have said it all. This is just about turnout. We are, February special election. People don't necessarily know that it's happening, so each reminder is helpful. We've been text banking and knocking on doors, and the amount of "thank you, I almost forgot, but I'll go put it in the Dropbox on my way to work tomorrow." Those are the sort of conversations that we live for. I've been texting all day through our text banking platform, and the amount of people who have been like, "Oh yes, thank you so much for that reminder. Like, I know I need to do this, but thanks for reminding me it's tomorrow." And also when I was flyering earlier today too, just like a lot of people who are like, "Oh wow, I didn't realize that date, this date came up so fast, but I'll get that in." So letting people know. What was that?
I was just going to say, well, that's actually a great question, is if we make it through our phone list, it sounds like you have voters that the campaign is contacting. Do you need more volunteers to help us?
Yes, we're waiting for King County election matchbacks for tomorrow, but likely yes, and we will have people tabling all over the city. Housey the House is going to make some surprise appearances around the city with some signs, telling people to vote. So on our website, howsourneighbors.org, there's upcoming events, and that's all of the different places we'll be tabling. And the more volunteers at each place, the more we can spread out in the area and just, let everyone know that it's happening. So yeah, and we'll be handing out.
How's our name?
Howsourneighbors.org is
okay.
The
So on
website.
Twitter, it's how's letter R neighbors, but
yeah,
on
How's Our Neighbors was taken on Twitter, but howsourneighbors.org is our website. And then if you just go to the upcoming events, there is, at this point, there's very few upcoming events, but it's all tomorrow. We've also got our election night party tomorrow. So if people want to come to that, it's at Washington Hall at 7 p.m. Nikita Oliver planned it. They are awesome at planning these things and everything. So, it's going to be a good time. Free food, free drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, and music, and election results, which is what we're all nervously anticipating. But yeah, it'll be a good time, and just tell every single person to get their ballot in.
Yeah, although everybody who gets their ballots in today and tomorrow, their votes will not probably be included in tomorrow night. So Shasti came up with the idea for a Friday night bounce party a while back. So I think we may be watching results all week.
Hopefully.
Hopefully we go tomorrow. But
Hopefully we know tomorrow, but yeah, we'll see. We are anticipating having to wait, so we'll see.
awesome. Well, thank you everybody who came to speak. Thank you everybody who watched. Thank you everybody who watches us later. Please vote. Please remind your friends. February 14th, 8 p.m. in the Dropbox is how to vote. Plus the King Conservation District. You can Google them and go vote online